Don't make me use my gavel.
Good morning. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of August 25th, 2016. Let the record show all the commissioners are present. Would you join me now with a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Are there any agenda changes today?
No.
No agenda changes. Next is our public comment period. If there's someone with us that would like to address the Planning Commission on an item that is not, land use item, that's not on our agenda this morning, that would be your chance.
Good morning. My name is Bud Hoekstra, and I've had an issue pending with the commission here for about 3 years, and it's never been put forward. And I would like to go over it with you today, but it will take more than 5 minutes. Briefly, I'm asking for a correction of the maps in the draft general plan. And there's a misnamed road in that plan, and I would like to see that corrected. However, there's a long story that goes along with this, because originally when I brought it before the commission, it was 3 years ago. I think there was I got a email from somebody, I believe her name was Miller, who received the documents to look at, and then there were documents for each of the commissioners at the time, and I don't, due to other avenues of pursuit, it's been wound up being delayed for 3 years. So I'd like to go over some of this issue in detail with you, and I don't have paperwork to go around, so I'm going to have to pass it. And I'll start out and tell you
Mr. Hoekstra, you've limited to like 5 minutes this morning. You do know that.
Well, being that the issue is 3 years old and that it was delayed somewhat by you and resolved several times but not fully, I ought to be able to go over it. Otherwise, you should set an appointment with me so I can come in and talk to you about it in full. There's no point in my sitting here trying to cram it into 5 minutes if you're not going to understand it. It's been delayed for so long, 3 years, to go over with the other commissioners. It's going to take longer than 5 minutes.
You are not on our agenda this morning. So if there's an issue you need to be put on the agenda. I do know that the Supervisor Chris Wright has met with you as Mr. Maurer. I don't know the status of your issue right now, but now is not the time to address it because it cannot be addressed.
Okay, well, let's get it on the agenda for next time. Give me a date and a time to be here to talk about it. Originally, when I got the email from Miller that she received the paperwork, it took 6 months for you to receive that same paperwork. You just didn't pick it up.
I don't know that this has been before the commission. I don't know who Miller is that you're referring to, but again, this is not the appropriate time to discuss that. So
let's get an appointment right now and I'll leave.
Pardon me? I suggest you take it up with Mr. Maurer or Supervisor Wright. This is not the appropriate forum right now.
Why can't I get an appointment for the agenda?
We don't make appointments, Mr. Hoekstra.
Well, how do you,
I suggest that you
read the
contact
code,
Mr. Maurer.
the chair actually sets the agenda.
I don't set the agenda, Mr. Hoekstra.
Then I have your assurance that Peter Moore will set this item on the agenda for the next meeting?
You have my assurance that he will discuss the matter with you as far as where your issue gets put on the agenda, or I don't even know if it's appropriate for a review by the Planning Commission.
It is appropriate as an SRA issue, and according to the state CAL FIRE director, that the Planning Commission here in the county would be the appropriate agency to consider.
You could discuss that with
Anything.
Mr. Maurer, and if it is, then...
Well, that's already been discussed with him and previous
Mr.
planning
Hoekstra,
directors.
I can't argue this with you.
Why not just put it on the agenda now, and I'll go and I'll come back and we'll talk?
Could you please sit down, Mr. Hoekstra? We cannot discuss this right now. Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, Chair, Commission. My name is Jake Copeland. You might not remember, but 3 or 4 months ago, I was up here talking to you about a piece of property at 3466 Toyon Circle at the intersection of Highway 12 and 26. I believe we were trying to move through the process to get approval for a dispensary at that location. As you know, that location is zoned M1. I'm here because I'd like you to refresh your memory once again that we were trying to rezone it to CP, that M1 property, because of the size of the lot. It's 3 acres. It's too small for industrial. We've owned the property for over 34 years, and over the last 5 years, we've only had one tenant in it, and that was Justin Candelera, who was in the process of getting approval through the Commission and the Board of Supervisors for a dispensary. After it was turned down, it's just less than a year ago. We haven't had anybody look at it. We had a couple calls for people that wanted to move in because they thought it was a house. And so the county is going through a general plan change, a map change, and I thought maybe now would be a good time to ask once again, you know, we would just like a C2, a C, C1, C2, CP, so that we could submit a tentative map application in order to get the lot split in two. There were some on the commission that thought downsizing the lot size would reduce the value of properties in the area. I don't really agree with that because splitting the lot in two will increase the value of this particular piece of property, and I can't see how bringing in a commercial venture, if it were to be rezoned, will reduce the value of the industrial property in the location. Most of the property there right now that is up and running is successful. But they're all over 3 acres. They're, 6, 10, and 15 and 20 acres out there. And of course, the land around it on the other side of Hout Creek is even larger than that, into over 100 acres. So in your deliberation of determining the final map, I would appreciate it maybe if you would take a second look at this parcel and hope to determine that it would be a better use as commercial than it would as it is now for industrial. Thank you very much.
Mr. Copeland, have you submitted something in writing to the county with that request?
Actually, when I heard about the meetings that were coming up over the next couple of weeks because of this plan change, no, I haven't. But I have an application here that had a negative approval. Is that what that is, Peter? Negative impact.
I'm just suggesting that if you're wanting the commission to review this during the land use map review process, that you submit that request in writing to Mr. Maurer, and that way he can include it in the deliberations and have a recommendation and be subject to review by the commission.
Okay, Chair, I can do that.
Okay.
And what's the timeline on that?
Well, as soon as possible.
Oh, okay.
We only have hopefully a couple more weeks.
Oh, okay.
A couple more meetings of this. So, it's not a lengthy process. You could probably scratch it out on a piece of paper and give it to him today.
Okay, I could do that.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Anyone else? Okay, well, we're moving on to our consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from August 11th. Planning Commission meeting, are there any revisions? No? Anybody, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is our public hearing, which is 2016-010 appeal of rejection of commercial cannabis cultivation registration applications for APN 056-014-012 Daniel Chambers. I'll turn that over to Mr. Maurer.
Yes, thank you. Peter Maurer, Planning Department. First of all, we've had a request for continuance on this item. Request came in on August 16th, asking to be continued to October 27th. The reason, I think there's a copy of his request for continuance. I do not recommend it be continued. I don't know that we'd gain anything from a continuance other than to ensure that the harvest season is over by the time we hear this. So, but you should dispense with the request for continuance, and I don't know if the applicant is here and available to speak on behalf of this
We'll get
request.
to you in a moment, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
That's all
what
right.
to do.
That's
Do I
just-
sit or?
Sure.
Okay.
Just for a moment, thanks. So, discussion amongst the Planning Commission regarding the continuance?
Is there no one here to speak for them now?
No, there is, but I'm just, hold on one second. I'm just asking if you guys have any discussion prior to that. No, okay. If you'd like to come up and, sure.
Hi, I'm Kira, and I'm here mostly to drop off the response to the staff report, but also
Before we talk about the project, we're really asking about,
The continuance.
The continuance.
Right.
If you could
So,
just
to
limit
be-
your comments to that so that the commission could decide whether they feel it's a good idea to continue this item or not, right? And we're not going to talk about the merits of the project, just
Right.
the continuance, okay?
right, that's mostly what I'm here for
Okay.
anyway, because I'm just...
Excuse me, what is your name?
Kiera, it's K-I-E-R-R-A,
And last name?
Tucker,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And if you could sign in too, that would be helpful.
Right here?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll do that in a second. Originally, the reason for the continuance request was 3 reasons, but 2 very important ones was Mr. Chambers had difficulties because of his work schedule. It just didn't allow this month for any time. And the second reason is because he wanted to have with him a witness who's a board-certified engineering geologist to assist with the issues that the staff report raised. Unfortunately, that gentleman had surgery on Monday and is unwell. He cannot make it today either.
So, Ms. Tucker, you're here representing Mr. Chambers, is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to be able to speak or what.
Are
but
you
at least to
representing
talk-
Mr. Chambers?
Yes, I've been given authorization to.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was clear. You're here on behalf of the applicant,
Yes.
or the appellant, okay.
I understand there's a concern with going all the way to October for the continuance. That was just the idea because in the issues, there's a probate matter, and that probate court hearing date is September 30th. So that was the only reason for the suggested continuance to October. That's not as important as the first 2 reasons, which is Mr. Chambers' work schedule and the geologist recovering from surgery. So that should be able to be resolved by September if the continuance can just go to September.
Okay, thank you. We may have, are there any questions of Ms. Tucker right now regarding the request for continuance? If not, I'll like to hear anyone else that might want to speak on the request for the continuance. No? We may have some more questions for you later. Thank you.
Okay. Do I leave the response to the staff report?
Why don't you just
With
hold on
your-
to it for now?
Okay, I'm sorry,
That's all
never
right.
done this.
No, I'm sure you're not, I haven't,
Okay.
you
so
don't
want
come
me to
every
sit
week.
down?
Yes.
No.
Yes,
I
so-
might, it's a learning experience.
Pretty fascinating, huh?
Yeah.
You could go ahead and sit down, and we may call you back up in a few
Okay.
minutes. I just want to hear if there's anybody else that's with us today that would like to weigh in on your request for a continuance.
I understand
Okay.
now. Okay.
Anyone else? No. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the commission to consider the request for the continuance.
Am I able to discuss anything on here?
We're just
about
going to talk about the,
continuance?
well, I suppose the three issues that she brought up do you think that those would make a difference as far as your ability to make decisions regarding the appeal?
Well, the major issue is whether there was a lease entered into prior to May 10th, and I haven't heard anything in the request for a continuance that bears upon that.
I would tend to agree, because there's nothing in here about the geology of the property.
I'm not going to grant a continuance because the application isn't complete. I said I am not going to grant a continuance at this time.
I haven't really heard any overwhelming reason for the continuance.
Well, and I would just agree. I think that the request, it doesn't really, those aren't relevant issues to what the issue is, or for the denial, which was a recorded deed or a lease agreement. So I believe that there is a consensus among the Planning Commission that we're going to go ahead and hear this item this morning. Do we need a motion? Yeah. Is there a motion to that, to deny the continuance?
All motions deny continuance.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. All right, moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we will continue with this hearing this morning. So is there a presentation, Mr. Maurer?
Yeah, just briefly, from the staff report, this is this request for, or an application for cannabis cultivation registration was rejected by the county staff because there was no lease. The property was owned by apparently the state of one gentleman. The grandson, who claims to be the heir, signed a lease with the applicant, but it hasn't gone through probate. There is no formal action to transfer the property from the estate to the grandson, so there was no valid lease prior to May 10th. That's a disqualifying criteria, and we rejected the application. So the appeal was filed. As we reviewed it, we further identified that it did not appear there was any cultivation activity going on the property prior to May 10th. So there's further reason to reject the appeal. The proposed resolution is based on those two facts, and that's why we've recommended denial of this appeal and why we rejected the application in the beginning, because there was not a valid lease signed by the property owner at the time prior to May 10th.
Any questions of Mr. Maurer?
Was there any information given to you as to whether a personal representative had been appointed in a probate of the estate of William York?
There was no information provided to us to that effect.
Any other questions of Mr. Maurer? No. Could be later. No. Okay. So, Ms. Tucker, would you like to address the Planning Commission on your appeal?
I just wanted to state back as to the reason for the engineering geologist is reference to the activity on the cultivation site that Mr. Murr brought up, because the site required no grading, and it's been available for cultivation. The aerial photo is hard to tell, but if you look, you see a clearing, and that's the place where the site is. So it didn't require any grading, and that's why we had asked for the continuance for our consultant to be able to come here and explain it all. So that's what we have to say about that. We provided, Mr. Chambers provided with his application photos of his equipment that's been on site, receipts for the equipment, and you know, his best proof of being on site prior to May 10th. As for the lease, we can't really say much more than we're trying to get the title, but the probate isn't until September 30th. So that isn't going to be resolved. And there's more. I'm not fully prepared thoroughly, so I have a write-up that, besides what I'm speaking, I'd like to hand out, and to be Daniel's official response as well.
You could hand out whatever you have available to Annette over here, and she'll make sure that we get it.
We get it? Okay.
Yeah.
Now.
Sure, yes. Any questions of Ms. Tucker?
So did Mr. Chambers provide you with anything as to the fact that Mr. Wooster brought up earlier, that someone was executing the property during probate?
Well, it's Mr. Kozer. Joseph Kozer is the heir, and
But Mr. Chambers is the one that has the appeal in, so that's the reason
Correct.
I'm asking you if he
Yes,
provided you
that's
with
the
any evidence
difference.
towards the lease towards that.
correct.
When did William York pass away?
1984,
1984?
yes.
And has there been a petition, did he leave a will?
No, there's no will, and he died in state, and it went to his wife, and it's another died in state, went to the only daughter, and then to the grandson. So it's been since 1984 with no probate, and so Mr. Kozer now has it. The filed stamp copy is in our packet. He's got it in probate, and the letters of administration would happen on September 30th unless the court finds some problem with this paperwork.
So as of May 10th, was there a personal representative appointed? May 10th of this year?
You mean Joseph Kozer?
As of or prior to May 10th, was there a personal representative appointed for the estate?
Not appointed, no.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
And has there been any adjudication that this Joseph Kozer is in fact going to inherit the property?
No. It's only a petition filed at this time.
Anyone else have any questions of Ms. Tucker? No? All right, thank you. We may have more later. We're going to hear from someone else that may want to speak regarding this.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Is there someone else with us who would like to address the Planning Commission on this appeal? No? Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, since there wasn't anyone else in the audience, Ms. Tucker, before we close the public hearing?
No, response.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion, deliberation?
Subject to being corrected by legal counsel, I believe that there has to be a personal representative appointed in an estate in order to enter into a lease.
I would agree with Mr. Wooster.
And that didn't happen prior to May 10th. And therefore, there was nobody that had the legal power to enter into a lease. And I haven't seen a lease. None was submitted. Even if there had been one, I don't see how it could have been valid.
I concur with Mr. Wooster. Nothing more needs to be said.
The terms of the ordinance weren't met. I mean, I understand his probate issue, but that's not a part of qualifying for the ordinance, and none of the criteria was met on the ordinance, so, no.
And obviously, it wasn't timely.
Yeah, and I would concur. It's, I don't see evidence of a valid lease prior to May 10th of 2016 either. So, should we get the recommendation of Mr. Maurer? Any other discussion?
Okay, so staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2016-018, denying 2016-1012 appeal, thereby upholding the planning director's determination to reject the application.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. You could always stay with us, Julie. Work to do. Okay, we are moving on to the Planning Commission review and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the general plan update. We are continuing this discussion on the land use map draft 4. So, we have been going through our matrix, which lists the properties, and I don't know, Peter, maybe you could do sort of the overview of where we're at.
Sure.
Thank
Just
you.
trying to reorganize myself here.
Okay, all right, all right.
So, as you were saying, we've been sort of going through the matrix. We've disposed with a number of requests. We've had a few new ones. I did send out, and we posted an updated matrix. As requested, we show the location. I've also added a column that shows sort of the determination, the tentative determination by the Planning Commission, pending final review of everything. There have been a couple of new requests added. In the meantime, I marked a couple in green that were we had either skipped those or they were newly added. Otherwise, we would pick up at APN 38-01349. And I think what we'd like to do today is sort of focus on San Andreas and move west through Valley Springs, Wallace Burson, and that part of the county. We've decided that we're going to do Copperopolis next week and probably wrap up either if we have time next week or the following week with the Highway 4 corridor, Angels, Murphys, Vallecito area. So with that, I don't know if there's anyone here in the audience that has a pressing need to discuss their parcel today. It's really up to you whether we want to just sort of go through the matrix. I would like to note that unfortunately Mr. Copeland left because he actually is on the list. He did submit a request earlier and he's on the list. It probably would be discussed today. So, but we can talk about that.
Was it the parcel he was talking about?
Yes.
Oh, so he's already submitted it?
Yes.
Okay.
I was checking, while
Okay.
we were speaking about that, and then by the time
we're all getting old. He must have
yeah,
forgotten.
well, there's
Yeah.
a lot of parcels, they all
Yes.
get muddled together
Yes,
after a while.
okay.
So I guess I would say that if there is anyone here that, either can't stay all day, we maybe missed them as we're going through the West Point, Mountain Ranch, McCollum Hill area that we need to sort of go back to. Otherwise, we just sort of systematically work our way, through that, this part of the county, through the central western part, and we address it that way.
Right, well, is there anyone with us this morning that has a burning issue that would be a hardship if you were to sort of wait for when we get to you?
I'm Dave Silvera from Burson. I have property in section 31 and 32. I
Mr.
was told
Silvera,
a year ago. What?
Can I ask you a quick question? Have you submitted something in writing to the county as far
I've
as your
talked to
request?
Gina for a year and a half.
So are you on our list, do you know? Because if so, it would be helpful for us to know what your parcel number is, and so that we
I
could...
don't know. I know the sections I'm in.
Okay.
I got 90 acres and I got 80 acres and 120.
Okay.
And,
Maybe we can find you here on the map.
oh, you can find me.
Okay. So whereabouts in Burson?
2 miles south of 12.
2 miles south?
South of 12.
2 miles south of Highway 12. Okay.
Man, too.
I don't think he's on the list. Are we getting close? Do you recognize any parcels here?
Are you on Burson Road?
On Burson Road. At Hillvale.
Hale.
Hillvale, okay.
Hillvale, okay.
So we've got,
And north. It's all north of Hillvale.
okay. So it might be this area.
Well, Hillvale's on the other side of the street. I'm on this side. I'm on the west side.
Oh, west side, okay. So these parcels here?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's all of the, how many acres is that, Mr.?
I got 210.
210, okay.
And part of it is owned by my kids. We bought 120 acres together. So there's 6 owners. And they're saying I can't do nothing with it.
I'm sorry, see, it's hard for us to really get the big picture because we don't know what your general plan designation is
I'm
currently.
A1, and I'm on a Williamson on my 90 acres. It's in a Williamson.
So
But all I'm asking is that I want the 5 acres underneath my zoning, like it is before you started this general plan.
oh, okay.
Because I'm 76. I've lived here 65 years. And I went through all the growth, before the no growth, and the whole damn thing. And I served 20 years in politics in District 5.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
So, Mr. Silviera, could you meet maybe with Mr. Mauer?
I've talked to him before.
All right, but as far as because it's difficult for us to really review your request because we don't know what your current general plan designation is. We don't know what your...
It's A1.
Well, that's your zoning. Yes, that's your zoning. But we don't, we don't have the particulars to actually review your request. So if we could
Well,
just...
I mean, we have it here if we...
Okay.
Yeah.
If we could get that.
All right.
So the 2 parcels in question are this one, Ag Preserve. It's the current general plan designation is natural resources land, agricultural, and this piece down here, about 119 acres, which is future single-family residential 5 acre under the old general plan. The proposed general plan.
Can I ask a question? The A1, the future, parcel is owned by your children. Didn't you say you sold?
120 acres,
And is that's that one?
yeah,
Okay.
And that's the one you're asking to keep the 5 acres as it was?
yeah.
Okay, what's it at now, Peter?
So the,
So it's in the Williamson Act?
no, the
No.
other piece
Just the
to the
green
north
stuff
up.
is in the Williamson Act.
Okay.
So the current 1996 general plan shows it as future single-family residential. The proposed general plan shows it as resource production.
So why were just his parcels pulled out separate from the rest of the area? Because of the size of them?
Yes. So this is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges that we face, is just sort of the checkerboard pattern of land use and zoning that we have in this region. We've got, several large parcels, some it's an ag preserve. We've got a lot of old subdivisions and parcel maps that were split up over time. And you can sort of see it's just sort of a hodgepodge of different.
It ain't a hodgepodge because you subdivided all the way around me. And now me and my neighbor, she's lived there damn near as long as I have, and now you say we're leisure land, and you subdivided all the way around us. And now you come back now and say our land is worthless.
And the darker green is the RA or RB or,
That's the working lands,
yes, no, but then the other one.
and
the-
this green here is the resource production.
No, the other one, the last
This-
one.
this
The
color.
blue-green or whatever.
That's the rural transition B, which is the 5 acre.
Okay,
And pretty much recognizing the existing land use pattern that's there.
right.
And they're all 5 acres surrounding that property?
Yep.
Well,
I mean, for the most part.
There's an
Some of them
80-acre
look a
piece
little
behind me that joins me, and we're about
that must be the one.
300 acres.
What do you do with it now, Mr. Sibley?
What?
What are you doing with the property now, running
I
cattle?
got
on it?
cows on it. But I don't know for how long.
So is there on the lower parcel, is there any access to public sewer or water there?
No,
No.
it ain't the city.
Yes, sir.
Understand that.
So the area that's underneath the Williamson Act, would you be happy with keeping that agricultural and then possibly
No, I want the 5 acres underneath all of it.
on all of it?
All of it.
All of it?
Was the
Because I'm 76 years old, I'm not going to live forever.
Peter, was the
None of
5
us will, sir.
acres wasn't underneath that part,
No.
right? Yeah, so you understand the 5 acres was never under that Williamson Act piece that you have, that 80 acres?
No, because under the Williamson, they put everything. It was 5 acre lots. When they did that in 74, it was done. All 5 acres, all across the county.
I'm not sure I'm following you, but
Here, can I go over here?
Give the pointer.
All of this, you subdivided around it. All the way around, and now you're telling me that I can't do nothing.
well, that parcel hasn't changed, the underlying designation from the 96 and to this proposed 2014. On that
I'm gonna be a
parcel.
park for everybody else. That's what you're telling me. I'm going to be a park and not be able to do nothing with it. That's criminal.
Well, that's what we're here to discuss, not the criminality of it, though.
In 96, what was his land use there? This?
What was
This one?
This is the 1996 general plan.
Right.
What it was before that, I don't know.
Okay. So if we look at draft 4, it still looks the same as it did in 96, or did we have a change?
Draft 4
The lower parcel has a change.
identifies those 3 larger parcels. as resource production. And it's accurate that it was surrounded by 5-acre parcels or 5s and 10s primarily.
And he's currently under resource production in the 96 plan. So there is no change.
Well,
For one parcel.
for one, just
For
the
one
one up
parcel.
on
So you're looking
the
at
75,
79.4.
the
So
new
that's why
88
you
acres.
asked that question.
The new
Yes.
88 acres, yeah. Those,
That's-
well, actually, those two little ones.
Because
Now, the parcel below it, which belongs to the children, is not in question, is that correct?
Well, he would like to see that change.
Right, to
Because again, this is
RTP.
what's proposed on draft number 4. Those 3 large parcels that are, 80s or up, are shown as being resource production.
Shall we hear from the public? Is there anyone else that would like to address the planning commission on this request?
I'll give some more information on this.
Good morning, Tanya Dawson from Valley Springs. And this is the kind of thing that concerns me with the general plan is people's property rights just being changed. They bought property intentionally with the specific zoning and land use for, in many cases, retirement or other purposes, but they bought something with certain rights and responsibilities. And the government purpose of the government is to protect those rights and responsibilities, not to change them or do what they think is best for the people. It's up to the people to decide what's best for them and what they want. And it's as if, up here, a lot of us buy trucks because that's what we use, that's what we want. We want a truck, and the government all comes along and says, oh, well, now you have to drive a sports car. Well, we have no use for a sports car. We want our trucks. And so this gentleman brought his property with his rights and responsibilities, and it's the government's job to protect that, not to decide what's best for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, Colleen Platt, myvalleysprings.com and the Calaveras Planning Coalition. One question, what was the underlying zoning of all of these parcels? I didn't remember hearing that.
Well, the zoning's up there right now. You can see that the lower one is A1. This is Ag Preserve. That's also A1. Surrounding zoning is unclassified, Res Ag, RR. It's sort of a mixture of everything.
And that zoning has been in place since, do we know that?
74.
So the zoning has always been agriculture on this,
Yes,
all of the
yes.
parcels? Okay, so the owner did buy the parcels knowing that the zoning was agriculture. I just wanted to
With the
kind of
land use, he's saying
clarify
with the
that.
land use designation.
Mr. Silviera, we'll get to you. Thank you. Let her
Excuse me,
have her
Lisa?
chance.
He's saying he had the land use designation of 5-acre parcels.
I understand that, but the underlying zoning was agriculture, and zoning has come into these land use designations over and over. We've actually made land use designations based on the underlying zoning recently, last couple meetings. So that's an issue. He also does have the right to divide these parcels, basing according to your land use designation of resource production. And I think it's 40-acre minimum, so there still is a right to do some subdividing on these parcels. I just wanted to clarify those two issues of the underlying zoning and what he can do under this designation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mr. Reyes from General Inn, 5th District. That's why we're having this meeting, because people come realization that someplace along the line, somebody changed things that was not quite the initial, original issue, wanted to do what they wanted to do. This is why we're having this hearing. And this is the time to make changes. I don't know who made that, that's only 40 acres or 50 acres or so on. This is the time to change it. This gentleman does deserve the right to have his property and all his benefits and responsibility, which should be his. None of us are gods in here, folks. And he deserves the respect to his ownership of this land, to use it for his benefit and for his kids' benefit, nobody's else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Silviera, did you have another comment?
This was all done in 1974. Probably most of you didn't live in the county. They went in there and they made a massive change on the general plan. 74, put 5 acres under the whole county. They just put a blanket right over the top. 60, about in the early 70s, I put it in the Williamson, the 80 acres, which I own outright. Because I'm number 39 in the Williams. I think you got over 400 down. Mister? How many in the Williamson?
I don't think that's really relevant.
Yeah, several
Go
hundred.
ahead.
Yeah.
You've been there a long time.
Yeah. So anyway, all I'm asking is to leave the 5 acres underneath it. So if my kids want to develop it, they can. Even the Williamson. Because it takes 10 years to get out of the Williamson.
Mr. Silvera, are you aware that you lost that 5-acre split ability back in 1996?
No, I did not.
So in 1996, the map is showing currently, this is what the split looks like.
We were all 5 acres in 74.
Okay, but in 96, a general plan was redone.
Nobody notified me, and I bought it in 87.
They didn't notify anybody back then,
Well,
trust me.
All right. It was all 5 acres around me. I want all 5 acres around my place.
Peter, can I have the laser pointer? I just would like to clarify something.
Thank you, Mr. Silviera.
He can, I have a question for him, if that's all right.
Yes, absolutely.
This piece here was the 5-acre parcel, right? The 5 acres that was split originally, right? That's the piece you would
It
like
ain't
to
been
see
split.
that way?
No, that's a 120 acre
It's 120 acres.
I know, but that was the RTB originally.
The land use designation, under the current general plan, the 1996 general plan, is future single-family residential 5 acre.
It's
Right.
That's that whole, all that yellow area.
That whole L area.
Yeah.
I don't own the 90 acres, but those people are as old as I am.
Right, so you don't own this?
No.
I own that, and I own the 120.
Okay.
I don't own that one
Yeah,
now.
the other piece that's shown as, go back to where's it go?
Okay.
This is.
This piece here
area.
is not, he doesn't own that. Someone else owns that.
That's Musel's,
Peter, can you zoom
and all the relations are in Ohio or...
so that we can see a broader picture of this area?
That L part, I'm personally of the opinion that he should be able to keep his 5-acre parcels there. That's what he wants. The other 90 acres here wasn't that prior to was not the 5-acre parcel split option prior, was it? No. So,
They started subdividing around me in them 5 acres in 1967.
they've been doing it for a while, sir.
67.
I
I lived there, so I know.
Yes, sir. That was before I was born, so I wouldn't.
Well,
Just being.
Yeah.
Any other
used to
questions
be
of
the
Mr.
youngest one.
Silviera right now? Thank you, sir. We may have more questions, but you could sit down. Thank you.
We have no way of knowing if, are you done with the audience? I'm sorry.
I believe so. Is there anyone else that hasn't addressed the planning commission on this? land use request? No, okay. Then we're done. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
We have no way of knowing back when, because in 96, the land use was changed on a lot of people without notifications. I know people personally that were affected by those changes. So, I mean, and I'm thinking that that happened to him, and he wasn't aware that that change took place back in 96. So technically, he's been under that land use for the last 20 years, just wasn't aware of it, right?
Probably.
Okay.
I've owned it since 87.
Mr. Silviera, thank you, we understand.
I'm looking at this whole area, and it appears to me that it is mostly 5 acres. He's kind of a little pod in the middle there, stuck under the resource production and working lands area. Wow, that's even bigger. Step back one. So we have added a whole lot to that.
So in the early drafts of the plan, the staff went through an exercise to identify existing larger tracts that are either currently zoned agricultural or being used for agricultural purposes, and prepared the map to sort of recognize the existing lotting pattern. Part of the concern was just as we talked before, about the ability to provide service to, large dispersed population, and how many more 5-acre subdivisions are appropriate in the county. There's still lots of area that could be further subdivided. And so that's what the result of this pattern here is that exercise that took place.
From looking at this pattern, if it's not already 5 acres, everybody's blocked now. If there was a large chunk of land, it's been taken away as far as subdividing.
For the most part, I would think there are some other, there's probably some 10s, 20s, 40s that are, sort of sandwiched in there. For example, this piece here, there's, larger, a little larger here. It's probably about, maybe it's 20 acres that could be split up into 5s, things like that. But the larger ones, particularly the ones that are zoned agricultural, retain the resource production designation.
So it was a complete land grab for subdivision and land use.
I guess that's one way to look at it.
It seems to me that Mr. Silvera's kept this open space, he's hung on, he's run a few cattle on it. A lot of folks around him subdivided out, sold to the subdividers. And when we keep him in resource production, we're basically penalizing him for being able to hang on and essentially provide open space for his neighbors at no cost for years and years and years. And now we're basically being asked to say, too late. Thanks for the favor, but you get to keep your land as a park. And I have a problem with that. The water is an issue, but it's been an issue down there for years. On the other side of things, okay, if you're in resource production, you can come in for a land use amendment, general plan amendment, and get it changed down the road. But, he's 76 years old. Does he really want to have to go through that, or his kids have to go through that? So on balance, I'm leaning towards saying he should keep his existing 5 acres. I don't know what to do about the other 80. I would land it down on that one.
Kelly said everything that was on my mind. The 80 up there on the right-hand side, I'm not so sure about, but the L, the entire L there, I think he should retain his rights to divide it as he wants. It's his property. He should be able to make the choice.
Because changes took place, I think, in 96 that he wasn't aware of. we don't even have a way to go back and say, okay, he did have a 5-acre split possibility at that point in time in 74, but from looking at all the properties around it, it's pretty obvious that's the way they were set up, to be split into 5-acre parcels. Wow. I guess I'm leaning towards allowing him to have the 5-acre splits, only on both, because that's what is surrounding him. It's not like he is in an area and he's wanting to do something special in the center. He is in the center, and he's the one being restricted, so I'm more leaning towards allowing him to keep that right.
Can I say something?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Sylvia, the public hearing's closed. Could we just continue with our discussion here? Thank you. Ted?
I'm all for us being able to have that 5-acre designation in the L, and I'm still confused about that other piece as to just what restrictions he has.
Well, to me, why would you leave a pocket of resource production in a 5-acre subdivision? I mean, seriously, that's,
They're demonstrative.
well, so why would you do it? Either you give it to them or you don't, it's kind of that's what I would say. I'm really sympathetic to the development rights, basically, that historically. My struggle is like 5-acre subdivisions it's not good planning. It's just not. And, but the reality is on the ground, that's what we have. That's the truth of it. That's what we've got. There's a lot of issues here particularly about water, suitability, certainly demand. I don't believe that there's demand for it. But, given the neighborhood and the reality on the ground, I would also support Mr. Silviera's request. I don't know that you really need to at this point. So it seems like there's a consensus?
So I've heard a consensus that this should retain the 5s. There was a suggestion that this other parcel that's actually not owned by Mr. Silvera, but would be sort of a pocket then of resource production surrounded by the rural transition, that should also be changed. And then there was sort of a mixed, I hadn't heard a clear consensus on this one yet. So maybe shake your head yes, 5s on this one.
Or just discussion about the AP parcel.
After hearing Fawn talk, I don't see any reason to leave any of it out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
I agree.
So all 3 parcels should go
All
to the
three
rural
parcels
transition,
should
so
be
this whole area would be rural
please.
transition.
Yeah. Unless, of course, the other guy that owns the other piece comes in later and complains about that, then we can talk about that.
I doubt that. There's nothing that prevents him. The A1 zoning will remain until a property owner comes in to apply for a rezone and a subdivision, continue to graze cattle on it, do whatever they're currently doing.
So it looks like we have a tentative, sort of a tentative consensus recommendation regarding these
I just want
parcels.
to ask one real quick question. Peter, by taking his AP parcel that is in the Williamson Act and giving it this land use down to the 5s, does that affect his Williamson Act at all?
No,
Okay.
no. He's still under contract. We have other parcels that, particularly like right here, next to the community of San Andreas that are under Williamson Act contract, but we've designated that as, future single-family residential, or rural residential, so that, the sort of logical expansion, but as long as he's under contract, that would remain.
Okay, thank you.
Ag.
So I believe we've got,
Okay. So all 3 would be changed to
Yes.
the
Yeah.
5-acre minimum.
yeah. And did you understand that Mr. Silviera, the planning commission? Okay, all right.
I just want to say one thing. We have water in that rural valley.
Okay, thank
The
you.
Watts Canyon, there's water in it.
Thank you very much. All right, so we are moving on. Is there someone else in the audience with us today that has a pressing land use issue would you like to be heard by the Planning Commission? Before we go to our matrix, following our list? No? Okay. All righty, so then it looks like we are going to Mr. Lang, is that correct? Or are we waiting for something?
Yeah, I don't think that, we've got a couple of parcels up in the Avery area, one in Forest Meadows, so we can discuss those when we get to that region. I think the next one on the list, is Mr. Claiborne here? Okay, he was here last week but had to leave, so we'll have to, in Sheep Ranch, we'll have to go back to that. So yes, Ralph Walsh was the requester. Our records show that Chris Lang is a property owner. This is a piece of property near Calvaritas. And let me go to that.
And was there no letter from him? Was there no letter from Mr. Walsh or Mr. Lang? Do we have, how do we know?
I don't have any.
If it's not in the packet, then...
Chris Lang, no letter, that was my,
I thought there was a letter.
or maybe no, I think you said no letter, but there was a map attached. So how do we know that this is actually a... Are you guys following? Chris
Yep.
Lang?
And I couldn't find a letter either, Vaughn.
Right, so,
So this matrix actually started before I came on board. And so I picked that up, and some of the requests were incorporated in previous drafts. This was, the first version of this was reviewed and distributed with the draft number 3 that was released in December of 2014. So some of these are carryovers from that, and there may be a letter in the 5 file drawers of correspondence that we have on the general plan that I was unable to dig up. All the correspondence are letters that we received after the release of the December 2014 draft. So there may be some earlier documentation I just don't have, but this was something that the prior staff had prepared. So there's a handful of those that are carried over into this request, just so I didn't lose those, gave them the opportunity, and you the opportunity to consider those requests. But
so who's Mr. Walsh?
I'm taking issue with this one because Chris Lang should be here to speak for himself. For a requester, Ralph Walsh, to make a request on his zoning and his land use is inappropriate without one or the other being here to discuss
it could be that Mr. Walsh is speaking on behalf of Mr. Lang. We don't know.
I'm not willing to rule on that one. I think they need to either show up or we'll...
Okay. So the landowner was notified
Okay.
of these hearings. We sent a letter out to every property owner that was on this list.
Was he told that someone
And
was
it may
contesting the
well
use?
be that
Well, he may be contesting. He may be the one that requested it. I'm just saying, we don't know. I don't even know how we know that they're requesting RTA if there's no letter. A lot of holes here.
I don't like that one.
well, why don't we skip over it and we'll see if we can track it down.
Well, yeah, because we don't know if Walsh is in support of Mr. Lang. He's representing Mr. Lang. We don't really know. We don't have a letter, so we don't know. So maybe we should hold off on him.
Or maybe he's...
Is there anybody that, Mr. Lang, Mr. Walsh in the audience today? No, okay. So I think we should try and get a little more, fill in a few holes here. Do you guys agree?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay. So then the next on our list would be Zero McDaniel's request for property in Calvaritas, or near Calvaritas. Now, I spoke with her. Is Zero not here? I spoke with her at the last meeting, and she seemed satisfied that her desire was to be able to pass it on, the property, to her 2 children who could then build 2 separate houses. And at that acreage, even with the resource production, that she could still split it into 40s and allow her children to have it. So she seems satisfied, and she's not here, so we can discuss it if you'd like. But when I explained to her that she could split it into 2 parcels, then she was satisfied with that.
Well, if she's happy, I'm happy because you'll take the wrath, not us.
And is there anyone here that would like to speak regarding Zerl McDaniel's request? It sounds like she's going to be satisfied with the staff recommendation of resource production. Is there anyone here that wants to speak regarding that? No? All right, well, I think we're all good with, as long as she's good, we're good. Okay.
So then we'll move down to, let's see, so to a series of parcels down in the Campo Seco area, and let me bring that up. 1, 0, 3, 7. So this request covers a number of parcels. These parcels here, this area, and these 2 parcels here. They are shown as working lands or resource production for the lower 2, and they have requested that it be the RTB, the 5-acre parcels. Now these upper parcels here are zoned RAX, and the X is a designation that says that that is the minimum parcel size. Typically it was applied for either it was part of a larger project and they shifted the density from one area to the other, and so they said, okay, these are the density transfer areas where the density was transferred from, or there was some other restriction. It might have been an environmental constraint or some other reason that when those were subdivided, the county, working with the applicant, said, okay, that's what you get right now. So this, the working lands basically reflects that existing parcel size and the fact that the zoning says these are not to be further subdivided. The rest of this property over here is unclassified, and then down here it's rural residential. The existing general plan shows it all as the future single-family residential.
It's possible, and I don't know, I'm just speculating, that the subdivision around it might have been, maybe the density, what there was allowed with this other, maybe they owned those parcels too, I don't know.
I'm looking at this right, it's the east side of Paloma Road.
Yeah, and it's at the MC over there, is that the
That's M2.
right, the M, is that, oh, M2, sorry.
That's the...
That's what we were...
That's the co-property we're
Right,
looking at,
okay,
yeah.
I'm just trying to get this. So, with the RAX, there is no future subdividing, so I mean, that's sort of, I mean, RTB is not consistent with the restrictions, right?
That's right.
So, that parcel, I mean, to me, we can kind of dispense discussion on because it's already been developed, and basically that was the agreement to limit the parcel sizes for that parcel. I mean, no more subdividing.
That's what the zoning would reflect, yes.
I'm sorry, that was a what?
That's what that zoning would reflect, that's
Right.
correct.
And that RAX parcel is how, what size is that?
They're basically 40s. Each of these are about 40 acres, and that's 10 acres.
So that would be the RP portion of the, is that what
And
we're?
that's the working lands.
So,
And
but
in
the
way it
working
makes
lands,
sense, it ought to be RP.
well, yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm saying if there's no further subdivision, then if they're 40s, then it should be RP, right? So that would be the RP portion?
I'm not sure why it's designated as working lands. There is some rationale to saying this ought to be resource production as well, at least these 3 40-acre parcels.
Yes.
Well, again, because to me, it's like you already had an agreement that you're not going to subdivide, that was it. And a lot of times those agreements are subject to, you know, the public hearings and neighborhood people and saying, yeah, we'll give them this, and then you're going to agree not to. So, I mean, I would be hesitant to, I don't even know if you can, just say, no, forget that agreement and let's do something new. So I think that we should be honoring that agreement. I don't know, that's, I mean, unless there's some compelling reason why not, but so then if they're 40s, then that should be resource production, right?
Right.
Okay.
So let's move on to the 2 lower pieces of property. Those there.
Those are also 40s. We've got ag preserve on 2 sides of it, and the 80-acre tract to the west. This area just seems to be the resource production area, even though it was previously identified, you know, under the old general plan as, you know, the whole region. But that's, you know, the issue with, I think the old general plan was we had so much area designated for future single-family residential. It's way more than we really need, and more than we can really support.
And they're not, other than that subdivision right above, there's no other 5s. I mean, it's all large acreage.
Right.
Can you zoom out again, Peter, so we can see the larger picture? Thank you. Those are all the parcels in there.
Is there a Reed or I guess there's a Donna Cribbs too? I guess I'm not sure about, I know that there was a lot of letters in there, but the requester and the landowners, I think there's a lot of family involved.
Yes. I happen to know the Cribbs and the Pisers from my days in El Dorado County.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, okay. So are there, is the requester here this morning? Are there a representative? No. Is there anyone else that wants to discuss this request?
Colleen Platt, My Valley Springs again. Process number 1 is you started discussing these, and we weren't really sure which one you were discussing. You weren't clear on the parcel and the owners, so you are discussing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels under the Reed and Pfizer request?
Yes.
And you're also discussing the 1, 2, 3 parcels under the Cribbs and
Yes.
Pfizer request? Okay,
Sorry,
that
and
wa-
I'll make that clear
That
next
wasn't
time.
clear. We were trying to
Okay.
figure out what you were talking about.
Okay, and I will make sure that.
Thank you. At the beginning of every
Yes,
discussion, if you could say
yes.
for sure which one you're
I will
talking
do
about,
that.
that'd be helpful. So just to, if that's what the case is, then 219 plus 179, so you're talking about over 400.
Yes.
Or at least acres in
Yes.
this area.
Right.
Okay, and they're all requesting 5-acre parcels on over 400 acres?
Yes.
Okay, and this is no public sewer and water, and there's no roads there?
As far as I know.
As far as anybody can see, okay. And it does, if that's the area, I understand it is surrounded by just, resource production, working lands. Cosgrove Creek runs through there. I don't know if you're talking about it, but there are habitat issues in the area with tiger salamander and frog, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a large area that's open space and habitat, and it shouldn't be helter-skelter divided up without consideration. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mr. Reyes from General Inn, 5th District. Wouldn't it be a good idea to maybe if somehow you can postpone it and get some of the principals be present? Some heavy-duty decisions are being made over here, and none of the principals that own the land, who has a stake in it, either they don't care, then hell with them, or get them out here and let them put their 2 cents into it. We're just guessing one way or another. And we can guessing for whatever directions we prefer to, depending on our ideology. But to be fair, somehow give them an official opportunity to get their butt down here if they care. If they don't care,
I think they have.
They have been notified.
They have been notified.
Yeah,
And
And we do agree with you, but he said he had notified the family and
we've notified everyone that's on the list.
we're not guessing. I mean, we are
The other-
doing our due diligence, I believe.
The other one that we were concerned about, Peter, was different because it wasn't the owner making a request. It was a separate name. This one, we're dealing with owners.
Anyone else? Okay, further discussion amongst the planning commission regarding these numerous parcels here?
I do know that the aquifer and that there does run up that high. There's a couple wells right down there. I know there's plenty of water right in that area. You get a little farther up and you start drifting off the aquifer in that area. But I have a problem putting more housing development near something that's already classified as M2 and also abutting up to all that area that's just large pieces of land. I mean, we can't start cutting it up more and have it right next to industrial for later for someone to say, hey, what's this industrial doing next to me? Or vice versa, the agriculture on the other side. It acts as a good buffer between everybody right there in my eyes.
Anyone else?
I think I agree with the recommendation of the planning department.
That's 3.
Yeah, and what I would say too is, this is an instance where we have an opportunity to not continue sort of what I would say the poor planning of the past and contribute to some of the legacies of overdraft of water and
When you zoom out on this one, these are all large parcel areas. It's not, you can see that area was set up that way.
And, again, I don't, it's a large acreage. I don't believe that the demand exists. And it also already has some, agreed upon restrictions as far as the larger parcel in the RAX. And I would propose that those be changed to resource production to reflect the limitations on the subdividing.
So we're talking about these 3 parcels here.
Yes,
1,
anything
2,
that's
3.
over the 40 acres.
The concurrence with the commission on that?
So when you have your recommended working lands and resource production, where were you classifying?
Well, as the map shows, these are the 2 resource production, the rest of this working lands. I think what Commissioner McLaughlin suggests, that these also be shown as resource production. There's some logic to that.
Right.
I'm with the recommendation from the planning department of going the upper working lands, bottom being resource production.
Well, and my point with that is that it goes against what the zoning is and the restrictions already in place. That's a 40-acre minimum. It says the parcel sizes cannot be smaller than what they currently are. So why would we show that you could subdivide them into 20s when you can't?
I agree with
That
that.
makes sense.
All right, are we good? You got all that, Peter?
Yes. So as shown, except for those 3 parcels changed to RP.
Yes. Okay. Do you want a short break? Or shall we push on? Short break for about 5 minutes to 10:25 then? We'll reconvene sharply at 10:25? Meeting of August 25th, and we are moving on down our list of requests. And now we are on Assessor's parcel number 40-004-039, Donna Copeland.
Well, unfortunately, Jake was here earlier, and we didn't realize he was actually on the list, and suggested that he submit a request to us. Well, his wife had already submitted a request to
Oh,
us.
so this is,
So this
okay.
is the property he was talking about. And I think that since he was here earlier and didn't realize that we actually were going to
We
talk
should
to it, we
wait.
should probably wait on this one.
And I didn't see any letter from Donna. Do we have a letter from Donna? Have you guys seen a letter?
No.
No, we don't have a, that's why there was no letter.
I guess you're right.
So maybe we'll continue this and we'll get the letter
And it
and,
may have been, just a phone call conversation I had with the Copelands on this one that they,
okay.
or an email that didn't get in here, so. So let's move on to Stuart and Lori Marson. This was,
Now we're in San Andreas 40-009-044. And are these, okay. Never mind. Continue. So this is in San Andreas. This is a draft 3 had resource production. While you're doing that, I'll do this part.
okay.
Zoning is A1. They've requested working lands, which is a 20-acre minimum. They have about near 110 acres. And they concur, or you concur with their request. Staff recommendations is that it be working lands rather than the RP, which was on the map.
Yes, given this location, so the surrounding land uses. it
So
was
which
sort
is
of-
their parcel?
This one here.
Okay.
That one. We've got the, 5-acre designation on 2 sides. It just seemed like sort of a logical, if you sort of pan out a little bit, consistency with the surrounding uses.
So the map already reflects the working lands designation?
yes.
Okay,
So-
not resource production, so...
Right. So I've already
what they
agreed, that's why it's
Right.
highlighted in yellow, so unless there's some other, reason that maybe it should stay as resource protection that I'm unaware of, that was my recommendation, that it stay.
I would concur with that.
So is there anyone in the public that would like to address the planning commission on this request of this parcel being designated working lands? Nope. No one? Okay. So discussion with the planning commission?
I'm good with it.
Same here.
Yeah, all right, sounds like that we are tentatively recommending approval of staff's recommendation of working lands for this parcel. So, moving on to William and Gail Stark, 40-009-045 and 047. This is
That's,
in the same neighborhood?
yes.
So draft 3 was recommending working lands and RTB, is that the That's a 5 acre.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's these two parcels here,
What, which two?
this one and this one.
Okay.
They're requesting rural residential, 1 acre parcels, and it just didn't seem like an appropriate extension of that type of density in this location, given the surrounding land uses. One of the questions I have, and I want to look, let's see. It is within the Calaveras Public Utility District boundaries. I don't know what the service capability is for that region.
Are in the Starks here? No.
And we've got that one pocket right here of the rural residential designation.
Right. If you were to come out just a little farther, just so I can get right where that is. That's right, okay, that's right where Gold Strike comes in.
Yeah, the Gold Strike comes in to 49.
Comes into 49. Yeah, there's a driveway, there's been houses there all along.
I think this is the mobile home park.
Yeah.
Yes. It's, for me, it's like there's no 1 acre parcels in the area, in the neighborhood, close.
And it's gonna be hard to find, because it's all gonna be septic there, it doesn't matter if you got water hooked up or not.
Right.
So it's gonna be hard to find an area in 1 acre that can if they were to go through the process. So I would tend to agree with RTB.
So we've got RTB on the northern parcel, the smaller one. I think it's about maybe 10 acres, and then working lands on the other one, about 25 acres.
I'm going to go with your recommended request.
Yes.
And is there anyone with us today that wanted to discuss this request?
So can I clarify that this is in a service area or it's not in a service
It
area?
is within the...
Within the boundaries, but it's not, you don't know if it's actually served water or not?
Right.
There's served water out Gold Strike going through there.
But they're
how far
past
off the
that.
land?
They're past that,
If
right?
they start subdividing it, they would have to do like a cost to serve if they have to run a pipe out farther.
So they're not currently on meters?
No.
Not currently on meters.
Right. That would just be helpful to know whether an area is actually served by water currently or not. That, to help make the decisions. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, discussion of the commission. Are we in agreement with?
Looks like to me.
Planning
Yeah.
department.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so
So just to clarify,
the working lands portion and the RTB.
so keep the working lands.
It's a nice
and-
transition to all of that resource production.
Right. So my recommendation said RTB, but I think I intended that it be, retain the designation of
Working lands.
working lands and RTB.
Yes. We're giving tentative approval to that idea.
Everything's 10.
Okay.
Okay, so
Next is,
this is, I guess this is a legacy one.
Yes.
Was there a letter from Giovanni Del Papa?
I do not have anything there was nothing new that came in the last 2 years from him.
So, but how do we know then that they're requesting?
This was something that was received previously, that was on the matrix.
Okay.
Back in, 2012, probably.
Okay. So is Mr. Del Papa here?
10-acre parcels on Dawson
No.
Road.
Okay. So we're talking about a 40-016-015 and 055, about 107 acres.
Yes. Just make sure I have the right parcels here. PN.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about these two parcels, this one and this one, West Murray Creek Road and Doster.
I'm going to say that I think going with the working lands is the proper thing to do here. It fits into the area properly.
Yeah.
I concur with the staff recommendation. Working lands.
Me too.
It'll be fine.
Is there anyone with us that wants to weigh in on these parcels? No? All right, I would agree. So I think we're good with the staff recommendation. So we're moving to
This is
Toma,
on
Anderson,
the
and
south
Toma.
end of,
just to be clear, we're on 44-008-063.
south end of town off of Highway 49. I have concurred with the request. This was, let's zoom out a little bit here. This piece of property here, Highway 49, Old Airport's right up here. We've got an area that's designated for commercial. This is the area that we're working on right now with the South San Andreas Gateway study, looking at circulation for this area for both sides of the highway, as well as through the rest of town. We've got high density or low density residential here. We've got existing pattern industrial land to the south. It just seemed like sort of a transition of higher density, single family residential to a rural residential type of land seemed to make sense at that location.
What about all the, on the two sides of the industrial?
This is part of the old, the cement plant mine property. This is the big pit, the lake that's there. It's not really used for industrial manufacturing type uses. It's zone industrial because of the mining activity that was there.
And is that one big parcel?
This is a big parcel here.
Yeah.
And then there's another parcel here that consists of the lake.
And is that all owned by different, are there different owners now, or is it still, I'm just curious.
California Cement Company,
Oh, okay, so the cement company still owns it?
yes.
Okay.
And the cement company still has about 1,000 acres, but there's several pieces between that land and Cyril's property. Where the George Reed has their ready-mix plant and the gas company.
Yeah, I see George Reed Drive there, yeah.
I just can't see subdividing that out next to the cement plant.
Okay.
This is that area
So
that's
in the future, if you broke that up, someone could put anything out there on that property later on if they went through the proper process, correct?
the industrial property, yes. someone
Yes,
could-
the industrial. So what they're asking is to divide right up against industrial property.
Yes,
Is that 1 acre parcel?
1 acre parcels, yes.
Excellent.
You know?
I'm going with the staff recommendation on that one.
What's requested?
So you're not concerned about potential conflict?
You know, there always is that conflict, and we've got probably more of a conflict to the north here. I think that any development is going to have to take that into consideration. It could be that, you know, they cluster some homes and provide more of a buffer around there. You know, obviously, they will have to disclose, you know, when they sell those homes that they're next to industrial land, and that will be part of the consideration if any project were to be developed there.
How does someone, how do you get to like George Reed and all of those smaller parcels?
Off of Pool Station Road?
Okay, and where, oh, it's right there, okay.
Yeah. Let me take the,
Now, the Tenon piece just to the north of it there,
That's a higher density?
what is that?
that's low-density residential.
Oh, okay.
That would be the single-family residential, about 1 to 6 units per
Right.
acre. There was
I have to
a
wonder if
project
that
that was submitted there several years ago. There's been a number of issues associated with access onto the highway that we're trying to resolve. And
Is there housing out there now?
no, it's
And that's the same owners,
vacant, or
I
maybe
think.
one farmhouse or something out there.
Okay. And I think those are the same owners that look like?
Yes.
Just one of them. And that's the C2, not the R1. Oh, CT2 PDR.
So the frontage along the highway is C2, the back portion
Got it.
is R1.
So do you think that they own the commercial part along the highway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which looks like split zoning.
Or I think that's
Seeing
just
that
one
in a
little
large
parcel.
picture, that side of Pool Station Road really hasn't had industrial in the past, more warehouses and such going through that area, correct?
Well, this area here,
Yes.
George Reed Drive, has some different industrial uses. The CCWD offices, I think that lot right there, one of those lots there. There's some other, I don't remember what other businesses are out there. There's maybe some trucking, there's storage, auto repair. It's not heavy industrial, even though it is zoned M2. The smaller lots really don't lend themselves to a major manufacturing type of use.
How is that zone where the food bank is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the food bank's out there too.
So it's kind of like its own buffer in itself on that side of Pool Station Road.
There's a fairly significant elevation change. You know, it rises pretty steeply. One of the things we're looking at is actually trying to tie in an access from end of George Reed through this property to one of two possible locations along here. Sort of getting sidetracked on another project that we're working on, but we're looking at trying to figure out how this commercial area can be developed and still maintain the highway. You know, this is the passing lane here. You sort of get out of town as you come up the hill, and people are starting to zoom. You know, so looking at some safe intersections that serve this whole area, in that this has been planned for commercial and higher density residential development with the adoption of the San Andreas Community Plan many years ago. Not proposing to change that at this time. So it just seemed like this little pocket here, sort of a logical extension of what we have to the south, a transition to the higher density here, and that's why I recommended accepting that request.
I concur with you.
I'm good with that.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to discuss this parcel request? Parcels? No? All right, well, I think I'm fine with
Okay.
that as well, so that's our tentative recommendation. So we are moving on to,
We already did those.
Done the first two.
I think we're going to James and Catherine Lodato?
Or
No.
the
No?
McDaniel Bruce
Zero
and
McDaniel, yeah.
I thought we did that.
It was different
Oh,
property.
it's a different, oh, sorry, yeah, it's smaller. Okay, so we are moving on to Bruce and Zerl McDaniel, 44-012-036.
So this is his property right here. It's existing tennis courts. It's got a recreation PD zone. There's an approved project and built project. I believe it's closed. The McDaniels has requested that they have high-density residential high-density for multifamily use for this site here. I think if we can bring up, zoom in a little closer.
Whose tennis courts? Is it their tennis courts?
I think it was a private tennis
Gold
club.
Country, right?
It was the Gold Hunter.
Oh, yeah, Gold Hunter.
Oh, so, and they owned the land, but maybe the Gold Hunter Tennis Club, they had a lease on it or something?
Well, Jack Lodato owned it all that, and he's the one who built the tennis courts.
But we're on Zerl McDaniel,
Yeah, but it's the same property.
huh? Huh?
Zero now owns the tennis court.
As far as I know, it's not operating. There's a large building here, and then you've got the tennis courts there.
And they want what?
So, the building is like a recreation center or something?
Yeah, it was like the club when you went in. I think they actually have an apartment upstairs there at one point, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe
They lived upstairs above the tennis courts.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there may be some indoor courts or some, shower facilities, those kinds of things here.
So
So
you're recommending it stay the same?
Well, I did, but I don't have a real strong feeling one way or the other on this. Part of me says, well, if they think that this is they could develop some multifamily housing, which would help us with our housing element, that may not be a bad thing.
And they have sewer and water.
And we've got sewer and water here.
and you look right below that area, that's just the extension of the neighborhood going up that road below there. I mean, if you were to continue it up, that would be fitting with what's mostly already there, in my opinion.
So you've got the county offices, county property here. The new sheriff's office is in this general area here. The library's down here.
And then the subdivision, what density is that on,
R1, that's...
like 1 to 6?
Yeah,
Units an acre?
right.
Well, it makes sense to me. I mean, if you've got sewer and water, it's close to, walkable to town. It's got the library.
Mm-hmm.
If you're visiting people in the lockup, you could just walk over there. And we do need more high-density affordable housing.
One of the problems there is, I'm sure there's an answer to it, and that is, if you follow that road, it goes on out to Murray Creek Road, but it doesn't...
Almost.
But it doesn't connect.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and if there were I'm sure part of a development proposal, those kinds of things would need to be addressed.
So on the adjacent parcel, this is the parcel that McDaniels own here. This is owned by someone else. There's a single-family residence here. I think that if this were to go to multifamily, this one here ought to be changed as well, and I would say maybe just rural residential to sort of recognize the existing, single-family home that's there, or maybe the low-density residential if we were to change this to multifamily.
They only asked for the change on the one, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, they don't own the other one, right?
I thought they did.
No,
No,
they just have...
someone
this is
else
one.
owns
Yeah,
the other one.
Yeah, The owners are, at least as of the last time this was updated, the Rombergs.
And they have a recreation on that lot? They have built a...
Is any of those tennis courts on that lot?
No, I don't believe so. There's a,
But they're, yeah, that's a good question. They're
Yeah.
recreation as well?
It's kind of hard to tell with the aerials how much.
yeah, I think the line's probably offset a little bit. Probably the property line is right along the edge of the tennis court there,
And there's a home there?
and there's a home on this
But their
parcel here.
general plan designation is recreation as well?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe at the time that this was developed, it was owned, by the same party, so they had the whole thing rezoned. I just don't know the history of that.
So would this be something, if we were agreed, that we would need to ask them? Or at least send them a letter, or notify them that this is being considered?
We could. It's not legally required. Because we are doing county-wide, we do, public notice of, through newspapers and, large ads as opposed to individual notice. Now, the board directed us last year to notify everyone that we're going through a process. We send out a letter to every single property owner in the county saying that this is the process we're going through and to look at the maps. A lot of people did.
How large is the parcel with the single-family home on it?
Well, and this would be wouldn't this sort of be a favorable
I think we
designation?
just essentially recognize what's there.
Pretty much rural residential.
Yeah, it's a half-acre parcel.
Small.
Should we just leave them alone, over half an acre? I mean, what could they, I mean, you're talking about changing them to,
They're a wreck right now, though.
Right.
It's for a house.
The recreation zone allows it just would seem sort of silly to have a half-acre of rec that just has a
Right.
house on it when...
And it'd actually be a residential designation would be
Right.
more favorable for them, wouldn't it?
It probably doesn't really change things.
Yeah.
Unless they had some plans for recreational use of their home. which-
bowling alley or-
Without the rest of the site, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
I sort of wonder if this map is an error. That when when this rezone took place, that whoever mapped it included this parcel accidentally or inadvertently. It's hard to go back and, I could do more research on that if we wanted to sort of come back to this one parcel here just to see what the history was.
I don't think we need to. I think you're right. I mean, I'm personally of the opinion that we could give Bruce and Zero McDaniel their request, and then we could go with your recommendation on the other small piece also.
well, the zone should be RHD on that half acre, do you think? Or the use?
No, I was thinking that we would just recognize a single family and put it as RLD.
Okay.
Which would
that's
correspond
right.
to the
I thought you
half-acre
were
parcel.
talking about doing the RHD, and I'm like...
No.
Okay. So you would do RLD on the front parcel and the RHD on the...
2 acres.
The
2.5,
acres.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm good.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to join the discussion about parcel 44-014-036?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Colleen Platt, my Valley Springs. Could I ask one question and then a comment? Under the recommendation, it says REC is the recommendation?
Well, we've changed that.
And
now.
There is no REC.
Yeah, that would have been the CR.
Right.
Oh, I thought it was PR.
CR was a commercial recreation designation that...
We've had a few of
yeah.
these, which will be, a few carryovers from land use designations that don't exist right now. So it would have been CR. That would have been the recommendation, but we've since changed that now.
Oh, okay, I thought you were
It
talking
was-
parks and recreation, but
No.
you were talking commercial recreation.
Commercial recreation.
And so that you are going to recommend
That, the,
High density,
yes.
okay, I'm
And
getting real
for-
confused what you're recommending.
Yeah, and
here.
then the little part, half acre adjacent to it for
Okay.
rural residential.
Or
Okay.
low-density
Low
residential.
density.
Low density,
Yeah.
okay. So, thank you. And then the other chart question, it says existing apartments. So there are now no existing apartments on there? Because it
I
says,
think there may be one or two apartments up in the...
Above the clubhouse.
And I think the idea would be to maybe try to develop some additional apartments on that side.
so there are residences on
Yes.
that parcel?
Yes.
Oh, I got the idea from your discussion, nobody was doing anything there.
Well, I don't know that there's actively being used as apartments. I think that there's just some historical knowledge that
Oh,
there
historical
are a couple
apartments.
of apartments
Yes.
above the clubhouse. Whether
Okay.
they're used today, we don't know.
Oh, okay, okay. So the proposal is to go with high density for potential apartments and
Yes.
that sort of thing? Okay.
Yes.
That seems logical because of the location, as
Right.
everybody's been discussing. It's just,
Right.
I'm trying to understand your basis.
Right.
Thank you.
That's why.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The other alternative would be for medium density. Given the location, it's sort of on the edge of the town. We've got 5 acre to the, north, 1 acre to the east, quarter acre lots to the south.
What's the difference in density?
6 and 12 or 12 and 20 per acre.
Yes.
And I think if they're going to do high density, that you'd be better off doing the 12 and 20 in that area because you've got the access to sewer and water, and that's the one thing we're lacking in most areas. So it seems to me if we're going to give any high density uses for future clustering of a home, that's it.
I would agree, and also the other thing is that, a lot of people don't like high density, and you've got county-owned property right next, they're probably not going to complain that much,
At least on that side.
At least on that side, yeah. So, I mean,
It is in a spot where I don't think it will impact that much of the community
Yeah.
if, I mean, there are 2 houses up there, they'll probably get the complaints.
and potentially, I mean, you could have, walking trails through there to get to town, because you've got
And that's
public
the high
service.
need when you're
Right.
looking at a low-income house.
Right, so, for a lot of reasons, I think it might make sense there.
Okay.
So I think that's our tentative recommendation.
Correct.
Okay, so now we're moving to James and Catherine
Which is
Lodato,
right next door.
which is 44-021-001. It's about nearly 5 acres.
And we actually have an approved tentative map on this property, and so it made sense, the request that they have to keep it the rural residential. So we're
They have a tentative map
Yes.
already? Okay,
creating, I think, 3 parcels.
okay. Any discussion from the public? Planning Commission? I think we're good with that, Peter?
Okay. So that wraps up, I think, the San Andreas area, unless there's any other questions general about San Andreas on the map. Can sort of move back towards Valley Springs.
Okay.
So the next one.
Andrew Capestro. Parcel 46-001-003, 84 plus or minus acres. Other, requested other.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
then,
somebody from my Valley Springs.
oh, right, okay. Oh, yes, I recall the letter. So the requester is My Valley Springs. We have had no request from the property owner, is that correct?
No. So this is
Number 2.
existing manufacturing M2 zone property. It's just to the south and west of the co-property that we talked about last week.
Who's it owned by?
It is owned by Mr. Capestro,
Okay.
and I think that My Valley Springs brought this up, sort of questioning why industrial at this location. It's, there's no access, it's remote. Is this really an appropriate location for industrial use, given the surrounding land uses?
Can you throw the overlay the satellite view or aerial view, please? Just real quick?
Yes.
It's up there in those hills, or is that next? Top of the peak. Is that where that cell phone tower is up there? I don't know.
Is there a My Valley Springs representative that would like to talk about this request?
Yes, Colleen Platt, My Valley Springs. I'll give you the history that I know about it, and maybe that'll help the decision. That is in the old existing Valley Springs Community Plan land use area. And it actually is shown as agricultural rural in the existing Valley Springs land use area, just to establish that background. So it is underlying M2 zoning, but the overlying is ag rural. It's located, this parcel is located at the top of the Valley Springs Peak. This is our tallest hill in the area. Elevation 1,230 feet, and the town is at 560 feet. So there's a pretty big difference in location from this parcel to the town, and elevation and distance. And it's a very poor access road getting up there, very narrow, windy dirt road. And I've been told, I don't know this, maybe Ted knows this, that there used to be a fire lookout up there.
Yeah, there was a tower up there.
And it was abandoned years ago because people were reporting fires faster than they could. So that was abandoned, but there's some kind of a building up there associated with the fire lookout, I guess. So there's.
Is that the same property that used to be Fallendorf's mining property?
That would be you that would answer that question. I have no idea. I didn't live here then.
I suspect that the reason why it's zoned industrial is because there might have been a historic mine on the site.
Can I continue? I have some input on that. I researched the fellow's name, Andrew Capestro, and I only found one thing on Google, and it was, let me see here. Now I can't find my piece of paper. I have to go by memory. It was some sort of 12-year-old settlement agreement between various mining companies. So there was some kind of mining rights, and somebody died and property changed and they had to settle and this and that. So that was 12 years ago. So there might be mining interest in the minerals on the property, but I could see no evidence of any use of that. So I looked under your land use designations, current ones, and under resource production, this identifies lands capable of mineral resource production. So if you designated this resource production versus industrial, you would still be allowing mineral production on the land. That's under your definition. So if somebody does have mineral rights to this property and they wanted to do that in the future, you would not be prohibiting that by just designating it something other than industrial. And under your industrial land use designation definition, and you may want to revisit it, this designation identifies industrial areas that currently or will have in the foreseeable future sufficient public infrastructure, water, sewer, and roads. This has never been used for industrial. It doesn't look like it's ever going to be used for industrial. There's no public water, sewer that could even remotely be gotten to the top of the mountain. So we just thought that designation wasn't appropriate since it's currently ag zoning. It's surrounded by agricultural lands. If you look on all sides, it's resource production and agriculture on all sides. So it just didn't seem like a logical designation, and that if you didn't want to rule out the future mineral use, which you don't want to because that's a potential use, the resource production designation wouldn't rule that out. So we didn't have an idea for the use, but since I've read the designation, it seems like that could be a consideration. Don't think there's anything else. Let me think. I think those are all the points I just wanted to bring up, that it just didn't seem like a proper designation for industrial on top of the mountain there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Discussion, Commission? What Colleen said seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, it's certainly not a location for some manufacturing facility at the top of the mountain with,
It's very steep, too.
yeah, retaining the rights for mineral extraction that resource production would provide.
My concern is that we go changing that. We have a need for the M2 zones in this county and the industrial, and it may be steep, but there could be uses for it, and you've got a bunch of industrial just above it, and every time somebody wants to bring industry into this county, we become surrounded by a homeowner that moved in next to the industry, and then they protest. So I mean, as long as that's industrial, it provides avenues for industry to come into our county. Just because it's a hill doesn't mean it's not something somebody would want to utilize, but I see issues of when we've got so much industrial there already, and when people start to develop, they'll say, oh, but there's nothing but resource production around it and homes, and we can't allow that industry to go in. In the previous ones that we've looked at, we've said, wow, the homeowner didn't get a chance. It's not the homeowner making the request to change his land use, and I would prefer to reach out to the landowner and say, are you okay with somebody else making a recommendation on your land use change? That's my opinion.
What's the current land use designation under the 96 plan?
Rural center. I'm sorry, this is the Valley Springs Community Plan, so let me,
Ag rural? Just responding while
Yes.
we're looking that up.
ag residential.
To me,
Right.
I think industrial land is really important to retain, but to me, you're sending a message and you're including it in an inventory that likely has so many barriers, including all of the infrastructure and the topography, that we're sending the wrong message that here's some industrial, we have a lot of industrial property, here we have 80 acres, when in reality, not really.
But you're also sending the message that anybody can walk in here and make a request to
And
change the land use,
and I'm
and
fine-
they're not here to represent themselves.
And I'm fine with sending a letter to the property owner saying, hey, we're updating the general plan. We see that you've got this industrial zoning. Chances are that's, not going to really be working for you.
The notification that went out was pretty generic. It didn't say somebody put a request in to change your land use. And I think that the property owner needs to be notified and say, if you're not opposed to this, we're going to continue looking at this issue.
And I'm fine with that. But to me, having that 80 acres up there as part of our inventory is very misleading.
But it's next to all that other industry.
Well,
is it-
which is not really, it's not really industry over there either.
It could be. I'm in for industry.
And that's a lot of land, and that it's probably has a lot better development potential than this particular piece. But let me not take up all of the microphone time.
But we
Go
like
ahead.
hearing from you.
Well, is it all steep and unusable for industrial uses, or just some of it?
Too many buttons, sorry. Go to, I have trouble finding the slopes.
Is that all steep? But a good
There's-
portion of it is.
You can see a few pockets down there.
That's not, there's, one of the layers here is a slope, but I have trouble finding it. Percent slope, there we go.
The state forestry had their lookout tower
There's a
up there for
percent-
good reason.
Right, yeah.
Because of elevation.
So the
dark brown is what?
dark brown is
40%
40% slope or more.
Pretty steep.
As it goes from brown to red to yellow to white. So it's all, it is very steep property. There's flat area here, a little less, down this corner here, but still 16 to 20% slope in this region here, so.
I mean, to me, it has a lot more development potential as a few home sites than industrial.
Also, at the same time, you have to look at, we would need to know what type of mining rights they did have there, because some of those only have industrial applications that, when you're mining. So if they ever decide they did want to mine. Not saying they did.
How about we at least send a letter, just saying, we're going through this process, we're looking at your parcel, we're thinking that it might be more appropriate for
We might get
research.
some enlightening information.
Yeah, and just give them an opportunity.
They may be in
because
total agreement with changing
They
that.
could be,
Which is
but let's
fine.
just, could we do that, Peter?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I think we should tell them what they have now.
Yes.
What their zoning is, and what the request has been made by other people to change it.
Yeah.
So the change actually is right now ag, rural or ag residential, AGR. And again, the early draft of the plan was that anything that was currently zoned industrial was designated industrial. We have these, it's sort of a legacy of past practices at any old mining site were zoned industrial because we didn't really have any other zone that fit that use. I think it's created a bit of a problem at looking, okay, what happens when a mine closes? Is that really the best use of that site? Particularly when it's an old historic mine that, hasn't had any activity for decades. Is industrial use the best use of that site? There may be an area that may be the only site, but the whole entire 80 acres, it's questionable. So we're sort of grappling with that issue. Is sort of this industrial zoning is a legacy of the old historic mine on the site. I'm speculating. But the existing land use designation is ag, rural, which would correlate to either the working lands or resource production designation. So it's really not a change. The change would be changing it to industrial with the new general plan as proposed on the earlier drafts.
But his zoning is.
But his zoning is industrial, and I'm sure it's reflecting the historic mining activity that probably was on the site.
But the only mining activity in that whole area has been clay mining on the cement plant property and also over on the Snyder Ranch. Those are all clay operations, they weren't hard rock mining.
So actually what you're saying is by designating it working lands or resource production, we're just changing the semantics of the 96 plan to the 2014 plan.
Right. And it's actually part of the Valley Springs Community Plan,
Right.
the 1978, 74
So, I mean, and then we can visit the zoning when we get to the zoning.
I will, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're not changing
We're not really
the,
changing anything by making our RP.
We're
at this
just
point.
changing the, updating the designation.
Right.
You guys good with that?
I still think the landowner should get a letter.
But why? We're not,
Well, for one thing, he's zoned M2. Some
but we're not
people,
changing the zoning.
when you change the land use designation,
But we're not changing the land use designation.
when you make it RP now, no matter what it was before, the zoning's going to have to follow.
That's true for a lot of parcels.
That's right, but he's M2 now.
Yes.
And some people look at the zoning as being their entitlement, even if it's inconsistent with the land use designation.
But it's inconsistent today.
And we're, fine, what's the harm in sending him a letter, though, telling them that's what...
It's only setting a precedent, so should we send everybody a letter?
No,
No,
we're
we
only
don't get
sending
that many
letters when
land
it's
use
not the specific landowner. I mean, to me, if somebody came in and tried to change my land use and I wasn't notified, I'd be horrified.
But we're not changing the land use. The only reason why we're even looking at this is because
Because somebody
Peter changed it on the map. right?
Well, my predecessor did.
Yes.
And I just sort of carried that over.
I mean, it's not a change. The only reason that we're even discussing it is because someone in the county made it purple. It never should have been purple. It should have stayed resource production, what it was. Whatever the equivalent it is to the Valley Springs Community Plan. So we're not changing anything.
If the landowner looked at what was proposed in draft 3,
Uh-huh.
he didn't make any request that it be changed
No.
from industrial.
No.
Somebody else comes in, My Valley Springs, says, we think that's not right, and they could be right about that. We think it should be something else, like resource production. The landowner has no clue this is happening to his property.
Okay, I guess I'm not, there's a disconnect here, is that My Valley Springs basically said that what the county has on map 3 is inconsistent with approved with the Valley Springs Community Plan, which is also, the county's 96 map, what does that show as a general plan designation? Or does it defer
It's community
to?
plan. So
All right, so then it defers back to the Valley Springs Community Plan, which says it's residential agriculture, which the equivalent of that would be what, working lands or resource production?
Right.
So we're not taking anything away because it's not something he ever had. He didn't have a general plan designation of industrial. He had residential agriculture, whatever it is. The only reason we're discussing it is because county staff made it purple and made it industrial.
I still think in the course of the process, if he looked at what was being recommended for this property, under draft number 3, it said industrial. He didn't make any request that that be changed. My Valley Springs did. He has no reason to suspect that that's happening, because he didn't make any request. Now, I understand what's existing, but I also understand what draft number 3 said, and that's what was sent out to the people.
Right.
And
And this is one of those somewhat rare cases where somebody other than the landowner is making the request. And it troubles me
So
to
you're
go right
saying-
ahead and make the change at the request of somebody else
So you-
without notifying the property
So
owner.
you're saying that it could be that Andrew Capestro has received the letter, looked at the map, and it's like, oh, they want to change it to industrial. That makes sense with me. I'm going to be silent on it because I'm good. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
We have no way of knowing.
or that could have come in prior, and he could have requested that change with the county, and they said that made sense somewhere in the time. So he already thinks it's going to be that way.
Maybe. All right.
So I will reach out to Ms.
Given the
Capestro.
really, really special circumstances, because I don't want to set like a precedent where we're sending letters out to everybody. But this is like, special circumstances, then I would agree to send a letter, kind of explain what's going on.
Yeah.
And give them a chance to respond. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So kind of continue till we give Mr. Capestro a chance. All right. So we are moving on to 46001076 130, 131, and 150. And this is another,
And I have an error on my sheet here.
okay.
Just, I've left it as being resource production, and that's not what I'm recommending, and not what the map shows. Oh, I'm sorry, am I looking at the right one?
This is property owned by BBG, RKG, Inc.
And they currently have a project.
So
in-
this is, it's these properties here, from Highway 12 down through over to 26, sort of on the southwest.
That seems like a lot more than 122 acres, but it's just the scale? Oh, yeah, okay, I see, yeah.
40, 80.
Yeah, no, I see it, yeah.
And there was a project that was previously submitted that was a combination of, I think a copy of the site plan was in the packet there. That sort of showed what they wanted to do. it sort of makes sense, and it makes sense in the context of the bigger picture of the Valley Springs area. And let me bring that up. So what, some of this extra information is detracting. So the project that was proposed had a combination of single-family residential, multifamily, and commercial. Commercial so along the Highway 26 frontage. I've sort of tried to reflect that by showing this area here as the community center, mixed use, and then the single-family residential as a transition between that use and the 10-acre parcel subdivision to the west. This whole area is, zoom out a little bit here then. I would say sort of an underdeveloped area, potential future expansion of the community of Valley Springs. We've got an approved industrial subdivision here. This is the hardware store, lumberyard here. Been working with the gentleman here to develop possibly some senior housing on this site. We've got some little bit of commercial. There's the sports club on one of these parcels here. And you've got the Highway 26 corridor coming down this way with, mixture of open land and existing development. So I've sort of identified this whole area here as the future expansion of the Valley Springs area that could be a mix of commercial and high density or multifamily residential uses. And so this is sort of a part of that bigger picture of all of these parcels here. I had requests from both my Valley Springs and the property owner to revisit this, because I think the original draft or the earlier draft showed this as resource production. More of sort of a holding designation than anything. And I guess it makes more sense to really look at what would we want and expect to see in this area in the future. And so this is my recommendation, that we have some residential use here, transition between the rural parcels and potential higher density intensity uses in this area.
So they have already submitted a project, 2006-178.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already shown an interest of what their future use would look like
Right.
of that property.
Yes.
And that's consistent with RFP.
Consistent with this, yes.
And that's what everyone else is asking for. So,
I
let's
think
go.
so.
I would concur with the staff recommendation.
Does My Valley Springs want to, I mean, you're in agreement with why don't you come on up, since it was...
Yes, Colleen Platt, My Valley Springs. We concur, yes. We actually had met with wasn't the property owner, but a representative of the property owner years ago when they came forward with the project and discussed the location. The access from both highways, from both 12 on the north and 26 on the south, the idea that, public water and sewer are available at the edge of the property, basically, so it's a natural expansion area. And then that whole area that Peter is talking about, even to the right of it, where you have mixed, well, that's not the existing zoning. The existing land use now is mixed commercial and industrial, and it has not been developed for the last 40 years. And it seems we thought that something with more flexibility would give the owners a chance to develop something that would make more sense in the market. And so it's not just this project, but there have been other project applications adjacent to this project, across for the street, down the road. There's a lot of interest by other developers in bringing mixed use, commercial and residential, to the area. So we kind of thought, well, this would help that transition, and this would focus the growth in the community center where we have public sewer and water and roads in both areas. The fitness center that he mentioned on the middle of, to the front of the parcel with the little green highway notation, I think it's right to the north of that. Anyway, yeah, there's a health and fitness center existing there. And the current land use on one of those parcels is industrial, I think, to the south of it. current land use designation. Yeah, the purple diagonal line is industrial. So that's another, we feel kind of inappropriate industrial. It's in the middle of an area that is being developed as commercial residential. And there's a fitness center right there with an outdoor swimming pool, right next to industrial. Doesn't seem appropriate. So if you open that land use up to more of the community center mixed use and let the developers give them more flexibility. On that parcel alone, I know there's an application. It's an incomplete application, but it's been there for years for residential with commercial in the front. So there's no desire for industrial on that parcel, at least at this point. So we just looked at that whole area as being a logical transition to mixed-use community center designation with public sewer and water. So this is part of that big picture. So you'll see coming down the next few ones that will be. So the Mission Ranch, now we're not saying that's a project that we're recommending. It's a land use that seemed like a logical land use for the area as a transition zone. And the way Peter did it, I think that's good to show the residential towards the back and the commercial towards the front with the access. So we support that, and we met the owner years ago, or the representative years ago, and so we think they should be in support of this also. Any questions on that? Thank you.
I do have questions.
Yeah.
So the project that they submitted at one point in time that they never finished,
It's incomplete, right?
yeah.
It's an incomplete application.
They wanted residential?
They want mixed commercial along the 26 corridor.
Okay,
in this
so
area,
you're recommending
residential
resource
here.
production.
No.
It says RP.
That was a mistake. I didn't change it.
What's it supposed to be?
Yeah.
As shown on the map, a mix of community center and low density, residential low density.
So I was going to say, everything you just described, don't go with RP at all.
Yeah.
That's not what we were saying, right?
RP was a
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a brief statement at the beginning that a lot of people might have missed that the map was not what staff was recommending, right? That's what we agree with too. Not RP, but the mixed use in front and residential in the back. Okay?
Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep. And then the owner's on board, I'm good with it.
Yeah. Anyone else? No? All right. I think we've got a tentative approval. Shall we finish up with the next one and then we'll pick lunch? Since this one is right in the neighborhood, which is Lee Pfeiffer. And this was another My Valley Springs. So I don't know, Colleen, would you like to come back up and talk about this parcel? Parcels?
Colleen Platt, My Valley Springs. This was another one, we just questioned that land use designation change because and actually the chart is incorrect and it's saying the 1996, it says CCLC, which I believe stands for Community Center La Contenta, and that's not correct because it is in the Valley Springs Community Plan rectangle. It's right on the edge of Gold Creek. It's right north of Gold Creek. Gold Creek's in the La Contenta Community Center, and the Pfeiffer parcel is
The flooding area.
in the flooding area in the Valley Springs Community Plan.
So we're talking about the purple PD up here?
No. No, it's, see the spotted stuff, yeah, the green,
okay.
And see the two blue lines going through there? Cosgrove Creek on the right, and then there's a stream on the left. Those are floodplain. The whole parcel is pretty much floodplain. I forget, A zone floodplain, I don't think it's AE, but it should be on there.
We can.
So there's an existing residence and a pasture there, pasture land and residence. And we were just questioning, and it's existing ag rural again. So the existing land use in the Valley Springs Community Plan is ag rural, and somebody somewhere changed it to commercial. So we're just questioning the wisdom of putting a commercial designation on, even though it is on the highway. It's in majority floodplain, so it would be problematic, to say the least, to put a commercial development. So we just thought maybe it should be left the land use designation that it was, but,
So it's sort of the same situation that we just had with the last one as far as the county changing it to commercial.
Not necessarily.
I don't know, yeah, I don't know who requested the commercial change. It's possible the owner did. Oh, the owner, by the way, if you might want to check, because we believe the owner is deceased as of a year or two ago. So that, I don't know if the successors still want, I don't know who requested that in the first place. I don't know if the successors want that. So
They got that little
That's
house
changed
out
some.
there, it's like kind of on a built-up little island out there. It's
no,
like,
not that I remember it being built up. It seems like
It's
the
right
driveway
past
just goes right
Gold
past.
Creek.
So,
Yeah, right past Gold Creek, but it's,
so
always look out
did
there
I
for
miss
that.
the flood map? We haven't gotten there yet. Or
is that the
when I
flood
missed
map?
it?
The purple is the flood zone here.
Oh, the purple's the flood.
Right.
Yes.
And it doesn't even show, but one of, that blue line on the left goes under the highway and across that, also, I don't know why it doesn't show that it could flood up along that little creek anyway, but that does also get wet up there. So there's, maybe a quarter of the land that doesn't
Flood.
sit in the flood zone, right? So I don't know, again, I don't know who requested that original land use change, but that was a change.
Commercial on the draft 3 map.
Right, but I don't know who asked for
How
that.
that
It might have
happened.
been the owner, because
Yeah.
it says that there was prior plans, so perhaps the
Prior plans.
past owner had prior plans, but that
Right.
owner is not a current owner, so I'm not sure where that leaves you.
Right.
So, any questions on that?
So I'm just going to correct, it's not CO, it's...
It's C.
It's just
Yeah.
C, get rid of the O's.
Right.
There's no, that's a legacy
That was
from
a
a previous
holdover from before.
designation. Yeah, so it's just C. Thank you, Colleen. Okay.
So the reason why we were recommending change to commercial was the fact it's zone commercial. There, obviously are areas here that could be developed. The rest of the property here is problematic because of the flood zone. Couldn't build on it anyway. But
It's contiguous to the other commercial properties going along the highway there. And the only use they're going to have for that property, by looking at that flood zone map, is that frontage.
Right. Which would be ultimate for commercial, you wouldn't want to put more residential.
And residences on that highway would not be as, what is the word?
Access.
Discussion, more? What are you're leaning towards?
I'm leaning toward the only uses this gentleman or family would have would be for commercial. And it would give a large buffer area behind in the areas that they can't build in.
They couldn't build there anyway, so the flood zone is unbuildable, so the commercial areas could only fit in the areas that
Yeah.
aren't part of the flood zone.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much, I agree.
it's not quite true. The commercial development could be developed by flood proofing, but you also have to ensure that you don't create further flood problems upstream by creating sort of a damming effect. So the reality is, it's possible that they could do some development within the flood zone area itself. It's probably unlikely.
Unless they channeled it, which would help bypass some of the flood area, so on and so forth.
It'd be very cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and given the, if we were in San Francisco, chances are the cost would bear out the development potential, but here,
No.
I
Yeah,
think that's
unlikely.
a stretch. At least in the lifetime of this general plan.
What was the use you were asking for, Colleen?
Well, I just was questioning the designation of commercial in a floodplain.
So you
Because
didn't
it
think-
was
you didn't think-
existing ag-rural, so I just wanted to know. We just thought maybe leave it ag-rural, but we didn't,
You didn't make a
understand.
recommendation for use?
I don't think so.
Just
No.
wondering,
We just, yeah.
asking the question, does this
Asking
make
the-
sense?
Yeah, asking the question and
Yeah.
whether that is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think given the limitations, I think it probably is the best use for that parcel.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, okay. All right, shall we let Ted get to the senior center?
Yep.
Excuse me, we'll put in order. The next one, after that one, is still Valley Springs. Should we wrap that one up?
Oh, you're not coming back?
Oh, yeah, I just thought you said you wanted to wrap up Valley.
Oh, well, today. But this way.
You know, I think we just have one more that's sort of in this central part of Valley
Well,
Springs. So maybe,
okay.
and I,
Let's do it then. I'm just trying to get, since we really, Ted, we made him suffer last week.
He missed his
He missed his
lunch.
lunch. All right, so Vosti Properties, I don't know what the acreage is.
69.3.
Where? Where do you see that? Anyway. It has an approved subdivision on one of the parcels.
I think this one, this is what we were talking about earlier, is this other region.
It was commercial industrial.
Right. So this is,
What are you building, commercial industrial?
well, let me put the APNs on so we can make sure I get the right ones. APN labels. So we're talking about this property here, 16025. These parcels up here,
I am a troublemaker.
and this property to the north here. So
Huh.
the only reason why I kept, and I think that for the most part,
What's the blue?
the purple is the...
The industrial?
That's industrial. This is the community center, and that's what My Valley Springs was suggesting, that this area be community center to provide that flexibility. We talked about that earlier, you know, when we talked about this property down here. This has an existing industrial subdivision on it. Although
Is that
it is
Ace Hardware?
Zone C, no, this is undeveloped land. For those that were here, you remember the AutoZone project, which is
Yeah.
right here,
Yes.
which was a part of it. I think that the front section of this is Zone C2, the rest of it is M4, which is the business park designation, and there's a subdivision, there's a road that sort of comes through, connects over here, another
a house
stub,
right there.
and there's a number of, you know, larger 1 to 2 acre industrial sized parcels here.
So what's the,
153. Okay, so you want to make it working or
so the request is community CC?
Well, remember the old, this now CC, those two we combined. So the request
it's
is
just
CC.
CC, community center?
I'm suggesting it be CC.
That was requested was
That's
CC.
what
Yeah.
the staff
And your recommendation is what?
Well, it's CC with the exception of the existing industrial subdivision.
Okay, so you're saying
Yeah.
CC with the exception of 072 that has the existing
Industrial subdivision
industrial,
on it,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, do we know,
Okay, got it.
we haven't heard from from Vosti Properties?
No, we contacted them and didn't hear anything back from them. So I assume that they're happy with the designation that's shown.
Which is the CC
CC,
and
Yeah.
the industrial?
yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple owners there, huh?
Right. So all those owners were notified, and I did not hear comment from any of them.
That, for that?
For that,
For
yeah.
how that map looks?
Right.
Okay.
And then we'll hear from them whether they concur with that.
My Valley Springs, any comment?
Thank you. This is the one I was talking about, that we might want to just wrap this up.
Sure, no, I know, that's what we
Thank you.
got that, yeah.
Thank you. We support what the planning director has recommended, that we originally commented on this in 2012 when it was shown with industrial and commercial, and we feel this community center designation is a lot better designation, more flexible. That those old designations were just too restrictive
yeah.
for the landowners, and they hadn't developed it since 1974, so this might give them further incentive to develop. And the Vosti Properties, that is an approved parcel map for a business park, they haven't done that yet, and they've actually divided up part of that, and we thought CC would give them more options, but if they want to leave that, that's fine with us. But they've already decided part of that should be commercial, and have, it's now going to be a Dollar General there. So there does seem to be more need for commercial and residential than industrial in that area. So
Okay.
that's fine. Thank you.
Right below where the Dollar General is going in, there's a house there?
Yes.
Okay, and that's fine in community center, huh? So,
It's kind of a legacy property.
Right. I mean, it's been zoned commercial for a long time, designated commercial, probably on the older community plan map.
not that has any
Yes.
bearing on this.
And so it's just a legal non-conforming use. They can continue to use the house, they could convert the house to office, they could, or store, they could tear the house down and, build a commercial building. It's really up to the property owner.
Ultimately, this just helps them, they can do whatever they want with the property almost.
Yeah.
Okay. I concur with.
Yeah, I'm good with it as well. Any other discussion? No? All right, I think we've got a consensus and for our tentative recommendation, approval of staff recommendation. Okay, so we're going to take lunch now. When we get back, it looks to me like we're going to start with Mark Husselman. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we will recess for lunch, and we will come back at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Little extra time.
Oh, okay, good.
1 o'clock. Thank you. I know.